It's always been pleasure for me to get interacted with Gujarat because I belong to Gujarat. I studied in LD. I belong to Bangladesh, so it's always good to be in that connection with the Gujarat. Today, what I'm going to speak is all about the transportation planning and how can we do the transportation planning using two most familiar tools or most widely used tools. One is the geographical information system, usually called GIS, and another is the simulation techniques. These two we have chosen because these are the two. If you are, as a student or as a tech or MTech, once you go in a field, any kind of field work or research work or in management consultancies, these two tools are most widely used. So I will start with the I will say clear concept with respect to transportation planning, and then we'll go ahead with the GIS and simulation. Since being a transport planner, I wish to start always each and every presentation with what is transportation planning. In your institute or otherwise, we all have studied that what is transportation planning in general.
Madam,
Yes.
ma'am, your voice is breaking. Means some disturbances and also your voice is not clear.
Okay. Just one second. Is it better?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So when I say, should I repeat or it was audible, kind of?
Ma'am, if possible, then please repeat, ma'am.
Okay, sure. What I would like to discuss today is broadly divided in three parts. Being a planner, what the correct transport planning is one, and other two are the how while doing the right transport planning, what are the two most widely used tools? One is the GIS, Geographical Information System, and another is simulation. So this talk will talk about these three aspects. When we say what is transport planning as a engineering, as a subject of your engineering syllabus, we all know what it is. It is basically further divided into four parts. The first part is basically to estimate how many number of persons are on road. They can be on road for various purposes. It can be for work, it can be education, it can be social trip, or it even can be a roaming around. Anything and everything, for each and every reasons, we have people on road. So estimating these number of people on road, it is called trip generation, the first part of the transport, first step of the transport planning. The second comes all about these people, whoever are on road, where are they moving, what are their origins, and what are their destinations, where they started from, maybe home, and where are they going. So this is called in general, it's a trip distribution. While making their trip from location A to B, what vehicle are they using or how are they moving? Are they going by walk or are they using a car or using a bus or any other mode or any other vehicle type we do have in our cities? This is called mode choice. And the last is considering all these on particular road, just for example, a road outside your college, how many vehicles are there? This is called trip assignment. Means on each and every road, what kind of vehicles are there and how many of these vehicles are there. If I say on a corridor outside your college, 100 cars, 200 two-wheelers, and 300 cycles are there, this is what we require, or this is what we extract from the step called trip assignment. Now, it is a very common process to follow all these four steps in transportation engineering or transportation planning. Only thing most of the time is missing is we forget that we have to move these people. Instead of moving these people, we start designing everything to move these vehicles. And when you start designing everything for the vehicle, we sometimes ignore that the road has to be comfortable. It has to be a very safe, and it should not create
Exactly.
enormous pollution. It should have some limit on pollution which it creates. So, and with of course some desired, some acceptable speed levels. So considering these four steps, if you are doing your transportation planning, all four stages of those transportation planning, then it will be requiring what we would like to achieve. But with this just pre-COVID scenario, if we talk, this is, I mean, last couple of months is being quite different. But otherwise, when you think of a road, what first thing comes to your mind? Just try to answer yourself to your based on your own experiences and observations. We asked this to many people, and most of them said, what comes to our mind is a car. Whenever we think of a road, the next word comes to your mind is a car. Not only you as a traffic engineer or transport planner, every common user, every single child, whenever you ask a child to draw something for road, they immediately draw a line indicating a road and a car, and maybe at the max it's a signal, red light. So this is what we are facing. Our focus is on cars only. So if you see as an engineer, if you try to count how many of road users are basically car users, then you will be surprised to know not only for any particular city, Surat or Delhi, each and every city in India has the least number of cars compared to the number of bus users, compared to the number of people who are walking, compared to the people who are cycling. And in northern India, it's a cycle rickshaw. But somehow we have ignored all of these, and what comes to our mind is the car. And once we have car in our mind as a traffic engineer or transport planner, we start designing each and everything for this car only. Unless we know the right number of walkers in our city or on a road, we would not be able to understand their needs, neither we would be able to have enough space for these walkers. So it is important that when you do any kind of project with respect to transport planning or engineering, consider all group of road users. Don't ignore any single one. Consider walking, bicycling, auto, all kind of intermediate public transportation, buses, of course cars as well, but not only the car. At the same time, the road, since the road belongs to almost all users, when we say, it doesn't mean that I am focusing only on adult, a fully capable adult who can run, who can walk, who can, cross the road very easily. You all students must be a very energetic and youngsters. You can walk very fast. You can cross the road very easily. But just try to observe when you are on road as a walker. There are so many people who are having carrying a child with them, or they may be elderly. They are facing some kind of difficulties, and some people are physically disabled. Now, if you count all of these, they are in the majority. But all the designs of roads, what we have kept constructing or we have kept designing, mostly belongs to a fully abled person. So we need to think that would we like to have our roads only for a fully abled person, or we would like to have it for everyone? Sometimes some people do argue that there are very less disabled people or very less elderly people. But even if you yourself, a fully able person, or I consider myself as a fully able person, and I can walk at a quite reasonable speed. If I'm carrying a child along with me, the speed of my walking would be quite different. The way I react, the way I take decisions on road would be quite different. So my road has to include all situation within me. So irrespective of the age, elderly, and if you count all these numbers, it's a quite large in majority part compared to the adult. So we need to cover all the vehicle types and all the road users. Now, if you see the existing R roads, whatever we can see, any road, any city, we need to see that a particular road, how safe that road is for car. At the same time, we need to check if the how comfortable the same road is for walking or bicycling. If you think it is good for both, I will say it's an excellent road. But most of the time, if you observe any road in Indian cities, either they will not be having any footpath for walking, or in case it has, definitely the quality of footpath surface would be worse than the quality of road which we use for car or two wheelers. And that is the reason most of the people do not walk on footpath and walk on the main road. It doesn't only, it's kind of a, I will say, a bias in our mind, right from the planner, engineer, users, and everyone. But as a user, what we prefer is to walk on a better quality surface. And for each and every road, we have better service, better walking surface for the road and not for the footpath. And that's why they all do walk on road. So we need to check that what we are designing, is it really safe and comfortable for all or only for car? Sometimes we do hear that yes, we would like to have a footpath, a very beautiful footpath, but we don't have enough space on our roads because our roads are narrow and so on. Then we need to think that if we have a limited space, what would you like to prioritize? It's all depends on the priority. If your priority is car, definitely you have space for car and you don't have enough space for the bicycles and the walking. But if your priority is walking, then maybe some roads are there where you can ban the car, maybe in CBD area or some other area where you feel the priority is on pedestrian. Accordingly, you can allocate the space. So in general trend, as a general trend, infrastructure changing, suiting to mostly is for car and two wheelers. Why I'm saying? Because on all and each and every city, we have better roads than better footpaths. Apart from that, you have seen many access control roads. What does it mean? If you have an access control road within a city, what does it indicate? That on particular road, the access is controlled for whom? Again for bicyclists, again for walking. It's so that a car can move faster. So I always say we should not have a single access control road within the city. Highways are quite different, its functionality is quite different. So what I'm saying is all about the urban roads or the city roads. At the same time, if we are proposing in particular cities, maybe Surat or anywhere, if we are proposing a signal free corridors, what does it mean? When I say signal free corridors, is basically we are giving a through movement to the cars and to the two wheelers, the personalized vehicle. Again, we are providing each and everything to car and and maybe two wheeler, and nothing we are doing to the so-called sustainable modes. And we do accept the importance of sustainability. We do understand what modes are sustainable, but while at the time of designing or at the time of implementation of the projects, I think we are unknowingly or knowingly designing each and every part of road for the cars and two wheelers. Flyovers, I will say, not only in Surat, in Delhi also, I mean, huge number of flyovers are there. And somehow it's considered as a sign of growth that if some new flower has come up in your city, very good politician will come and inaugurate it, and it will be highlighted so nicely. As a user, also we do think that yes, it's a wonderful achievement. It's something. It's a kind of a sign of growth. We have achieved something. Now just try to understand wherever the flyover has been built. Earlier, it must be an intersection, definitely. At that time, how everyone was able to cross, and after flyover, how people are able to cross. It's nearly impossible to cross over the flyover, right? And at the same time, wherever the new flyover has been built, after a couple of years, you must have observed that flyover is full of traffic again. What does it indicate? Flyover congestion over the flyover or congestion just when you come down from the flyover on the downstream. These congestion indicates that we have not solved the problem. What we have done is simply we have shifted the problem of congestion. Sometimes we are shifting this in terms of time. Wherever the congestion is, we build flyover, and after 2 or 3 years, 2 to 3 years, it will remain quite comfortable in terms of congestion. But then after 2 to 3 years or 4 years, sometimes again the same congestion level has occurred. So we have shifted the problem in terms of time. At the same time, sometimes we do through by providing these flyovers, we shift the problem to in terms of a space. Earlier, the congestion was at where the flyover has been built. Now it is moved to 200 meters ahead of it, or maybe 300 meters ahead of it. So again, we have shifted the problem instead of solving. At the same time, if we talk about the footover bridge, many a time we misunderstood our guidelines as well. If you have a road where in last 5 years, say 2 to 3 accidents have happened, immediately requirement will be highlighted would be the for footover bridges, so that we can separate it out. You know why footover bridges have been provided on the name of safety, I will say, so that we can separate out the vehicles and from the pedestrians. So they are no more in the conflict. They are not sharing the same space, and that's why they become safe. But in all this process, we have reduced the comfort of a pedestrian very largely. Earlier, it was very easy to cross the road just by crossing maybe around 20 meter or 25 meter. Now, same pedestrian, if he has to cross the road, he has to come up and then cross the road and go down. And that is the reason most of the flyovers have not been used. And you must have seen everywhere that kind of a broken fencing at grade, so that someone must be, trying to cross the road at the grade. Those broken fencing, I always say, it's not it's misbehavior of the user. It is basically their voice. They are raising voice that please remove it. We would like to cross it here. And they are literally, if they have broken it largely, I will say, sometimes you must have observed overnight those fencing have been removed. Newly constructed fencing by the government departments. Next day it gets removed, and then we blame the India mein kuch nahi ho sakta. But actually, they are saying, please don't put these barriers because it is troubling us. So remove it. You would like to cross it here. So all each and every infrastructural change must be checked. Is it suitable for everyone or just for cars? By providing footover bridges, we are just helping the cars and two-wheelers so that they can move faster without any delay. And altogether, whatever kind of infrastructure we have kept building in last couple of decades has resulted in this. I like this picture. Not I'm willing to have this, but I like because it conveys what I would like to say. The burden of all car users in terms of congestion, in terms of vehicular pollution, in terms of accidents, everything is on shoulder of a pedestrian or a cyclist, because most of the accidents involves pedestrians. Without using a vehicle, without moving at very faster speed, pedestrians are dying because of obviously the vehicles. And this is the I always say it's the right picture to convey my concern. We all have learned, we all have, I mean, even now these days, otherwise conferences or in webinars, wherever you have been spending time with respect to transportation planning, learning, we all know that what is sustainable. Public transportation and non-motorized transportation, these are sustainable. There is nothing new in that. Well known, a well accepted, and a well appreciated fact. At the same time, we know that for this sustainability, this known sustainability, how much are we spending in terms of money, in terms of infrastructure building. If these two had been correct, then we should have been reached to a better environmental impact, better safety aspects, and better sustainability, because we have spent for these, right? When we are saying that we are aware of sustainability and we have spent this much money and infrastructure, then we must check what we have spent for in terms of sustainability. Have we achieved it or not? So the direction where we are moving, is it right or wrong? Is it towards sustainability or it's not? So let's relearn it, I will say. Yes, we have spent huge budget, and this is just two numbers with respect to Delhi, but it is proportionately almost similar for almost every city of India. Don't go in much in figures. What I'm trying to say is we are spending huge money, and these huge money, if you see what kind of projects we are building, again the widening of roads, construction of flyovers, foot-over bridges, and so on. We have kept doing it since last couple of decades. Also, while when we suggest somewhere that widening of roads because of congestion or all sort of reasons, do we have any idea that how much should be widened? At present, for Delhi, I will say, nearly 30% of total area of Delhi is actually used as a road, right? Sorry. If we have given 30% of our land to just so that a person or the vehicles can move, that 30%, it's a huge and maximum within India. And still we are having in Delhi the same problems what everyone could have in terms of congestion and pollution, and it's, I think it's well known to everyone. And again, I just would like to remind that this doesn't include the parking, and parking area is a huge, because everyone as of now parking their car outside own houses. It's not considered here, but it is definitely huge. Now imagine with the, we expect that the economy will grow and each and every person will be able to have a car by for themselves. Now imagine each and every person in the city, if start consuming the space equivalent to one car, then how much space we will be having for roads, or how much space will be left for us to have to build our colleges, to schools, to public places, all public, even the houses, very less. So just understand that by adding more space, we are not solving any problem. Just only thing we need to check is, are we providing enough space for which is called the sustainability? Are we giving enough space, enough comfort, enough safety to all road users, which whom we would like to encourage? We would like to have it more on roads. If not, then we must recheck that what we are doing and what we are achieving. So this is high time. I always say this is high time to check some that whatever we are spending in terms of all resources, budget, space, everything to achieve, maybe we are not achieving. We are achieving something else. In terms of pollution, we are achieving higher and higher pollution. We are achieving higher and higher accidents. So definitely we need to recheck. So we need to think that whatever direction we are moving, is it right or wrong? If it's wrong, then better to correct. So only thing is, as a planner, as an engineer, we must remove car from our mind and then try to do all transport planning projects. Now, with respect to transport planning projects, definitely this is, I always prefer to share for transport planning, with respect to transport planning, that be clear with your priority so that you can design well. Because before starting any kind of using any kind of a software or any tool, the concept must be clear, because otherwise what happens is the software, each and every software has a default values, and you, if you ignore those default values, you will end up doing the same thing which is going on since a couple of decades. You will end up having more and more flyovers, keep widening your roads, keep walking unknowingly or knowingly for cars, and only cars, I will say. So it's better that whatever software you are planning to use, don't forget your transport planning aspect. Software is just to help you, because the large data you will be handling or enormous data which you may not be able to handle otherwise manually or in Excels and all. So these are the tools which I recommend. You can use it, but without losing the grip on your transportation planning. So I will talk a little bit about the two kind of a major softwares or major techniques rather, which have been used in transportation planning and traffic engineering. The one is GIS and another is a simulation. I just added couple of name of couple of brands. I don't by any means I don't promote them. I just highlighted couple of them. You can Google it many more, but these are since most widely used. I just have shared it here. Though there is no comparison between these two, but I would like to have what the primary function they help us in conducting. The GIS is primarily used for a regional level analysis. This is for maybe a city, for a whole city, Surat city, Gujarat state, or large area. And simulation is something which is micro, especially micro simulation, what we usually conduct do for the traffic engineering part. GIS is a tool. It it helps in a kind of a mapping tool. It helps you in conducting analysis. And when we use simulation, simulation is something, if you want to try something on road, say you would like to have a separate two-wheeler lane on the road, one of the road or all kind of roads. Now you cannot implement it from on the field tomorrow itself. Even if you have convinced your PWD and traffic police of Surat that you would like to have a trial on a two-wheeler lane, it would be very risky. In case you would like to try something and you plan to have it trial or the trial on a field, it would be difficult. In case something goes wrong, it will result in a chaos. It can result in a major accident and everything, which is not acceptable. So whatever you would like to try, but you cannot try it on field, that can be simulated. So in broadly, simulation is something, some kind of experiments which you cannot otherwise do on road, which you can do it here. So this is what I wanted to say. In terms of simulation, you need to understand that simulation is basically you need to first collect information with respect to the existing ground reality. Unless your ground reality is correct, you cannot calibrate it. And when I say calibrate means if you have observed that on a road out corridor outside your college, the average speed of a car is 20 kilometer, it should be 20 kilometer in your simulation package. It should not be 30 or 10 or even 25 or 15. This is called calibration. Until you are getting the same level of, same level of speed, counts, and everything, you cannot do many more experiments on it. I have preferred to talk about simulation through a small project. We have done it recently. Or what is required to simulate something. When you are planning to do some kind of a simulation, we have used one particular software called Vision, but you can use any Imson or Citra or many more are available. First, you need to code the network which you are, which is your study area. You need to add how many number of vehicles are there. If there is a signal, then you need to add the signal timings into that. What is the speed at that? This is all about the existing condition, how a vehicle should move. If you are if you simulate something for say US traffic, it would be right hand traffic. For India, it would be left hand. At the same time, in India, the overtaking is happening from both the sides. So these kind of characteristics which you observe on road has to be incorporated in your simulation package at the very beginning level. This is kind of, I will say, part of the data requirement itself, that how a vehicle moves, at what speed it moves, how many of them move, and so on. After creating the road network, you have to add the vehicles, the speed distribution, on which route they do follow. In case this is vehicle routing is basically applicable to the bus routes or buses or any other organized public transportation which has a specific routes. Number of pedestrians, how they cross, where they cross, how many of them do cross, and so on. Where the parking lots are in terms of signal, what how much time is dedicated for pedestrian crossing, how much is for red light, how much is for green, and so on. So we built a road network for some area. This was the area around a metro station where the huge traffic jam was happening. So we wanted to reduce the traffic jam over here. So we wanted to try some strategies. Usually, wherever the traffic jam starts occurring, as we all discussed earlier also, like in today, we all try to explore option in terms of how can we widen the road or how can we have a flyover. And for this project, we decided that we will not propose flyover, neither we will propose flyover, nor we will widen it up, because that is, as we learn it, it's not the right approach to design the roads. So without widening and without proposing flyover, is it anything which we can do to improve the traffic jam at this particular location? And that's why we did a detailed geometry data collection here. We included what all vehicles we have on our roads. It can be same or it can be different for a particular city. At what speed they are moving, those kind of distribution, speed distribution details we have added. And with respect to routes also, we have added few things. This is just all part of how to capture and keep everything, the existing data in your simulation packages. This is with respect to the signal, the phasing, the timing, and what head it has. This was quite important to understand that if you have, even if you correct the signal redesigning, is it any gain you are able to have it at that particular location or not. So we had a couple of trials which we cannot do it on ground. We did it in simulation. Of course, car following model. I think if any MTech students are there, they must have learned it. How a car moves in a traffic. If around there is a nearby two-wheeler, how will the car driver react? And if there is a pedestrian, how will he react? Or if there are two cars together, how do they move ahead? Lane changing model also at the same time. This is just few views with respect to simulation. How do we, first thing is to calibrate what we have it on ground. We do collect and we do calibrate. This is few things which we have on simulation package. This is just to convey that whatever we you have collected, it can be seen through this simulation. And of course, as I said, you need to calibrate it with respect to volume we do, sometimes with respect to speed we do, sometimes we check the headway in terms of space headway or time headway. Headway is basically distance between two cars. Now, once the existing situation has been completely and correctly you have coded in your simulation package, then you can try which you would like to try in terms of you may close particular road, and if there is a road network of say some 10-15 kilometers, you may would like to cross particular movement, may would like to try if how what will happen if there are 100 more vehicles or 100 less vehicles. What will happen if you have a separate bus lane? What will happen if you have a separate two-wheeler lane? Or what if you take out some space for footpath. All these scenarios which you would like to try, now it tools can be tried and tested. And then simulation package will be able to give you right answers. But unless you have not coded your existing details correctly, all with it's like a garbage in, garbage out. If you put garbage in, then you will be getting garbage out. But if you have put right data, accurate data, definitely your analysis will be much, much stronger. So it's always been challenged to calibrate your data and simulation package. Especially, I mean, I'm not saying any particular brand, but most of what we have it in our markets, all are basically developed, initially developed in some other countries and not India. So calibrating those software is always remains a challenge. Uh, Major time of the project goes to this calibration. For this particular project, we tried because we wanted to reduce the traffic jam just below the metro station. We adopted or we tried a couple of parking related policies. What if we change the in North India we have a cycle rickshaw, which is a three-wheeled cycle. It works similarly like auto rickshaw there. So those kind of rickshaw or e-rickshaw, electric rickshaw, those are there and they serve to the metro commuters. These have been parking just at the metro station. So as of now, since it is unorganized, we make it organized and try to check that if we give a separate lane for the cycle rickshaw, what improvement can we achieve? So then we checked it and we analyzed it and we understood that it is from 2 to 6 kilometer per hour increase can be expected if we make the parking policy right. At the same time, we tried to change the bus stop location and try to see that what is the impact on all kind of road users. Third, we tried was the signal redesigning. Sometimes we do forget that how much time is while there is a free left turning, a pedestrian cannot cross the road. So he will jump, a pedestrian will jump in between. This creates unsafe as well at the same time it reduces the capacity of that intersection. So we have proposed that the free left turning should be not provided to any vehicles so that it will be safer as well as all over it will increase the capacity as well, even for the cars. And yes, we tried segregated pickup and drop off zone. There are many metro users who come to metro by cabs or some private vehicle, someone can drop them. And so we have designed some segregated pickup and drop off zones for that to understand the impact of it. And yes, it helps us in improving the all over speed, nearly 3 kilometers per hour. Now these have been analyzed from the simulation, and that's why I had to share. At the same time, one more thing which I would like to cover is the GIS. Again, through one project, I think through project it is more understood. So that's why I'm sharing projects like projects. In GIS, actually, whoever is beginner, I just would like to share for them that GIS is basically having all your data in a single platform. Now, with respect to, of course, transport planning and engineering, in GIS, everything you can present either by a point or by a line or by a polygon. Only three entities are there. Now, a person who's working in a area may have a metro station as a point, a bus stop can be a point, a building can be a point. Yes, road, river, those things are basically lines. And for people who are working in, say, water resources, water pipeline can be a line. So, and similarly, a polygon, it can be a Surat city district. boundary, or it can be your area boundary, or it can be any basically area that can be that is possible to be present through a polygon. So by these three elements, we can create a good database. And when we say in GIS, with respect to GIS, all data have been provided by us on. Whatever we are going to keep it in a database, for those data only, we can have some queries. So that's what, if you on a particular road, if you are added information with respect to its length, maybe its name, or is it a divided road or undivided road, or whatever information you would have with you, and that the same thing can be kept in a database of GIS database. For example, this is particular shape file. In one file of the GIS is called shape file. This particular shape file shows each polygon is basically a village. This is Tripura state, and each polygon shows a village. Now, for each village, we have some information that how much, what is the population, what is the area, and who's the district TM of that particular village, which district it belongs to, and so on. Whatever information you have, you can collect from census data, you can collect from local agencies and everything. So all information you have it with respect to village can be added here. This is just example for one. At the same time, now for all in this particular file, we have 800 plus villages, and for all 800 villages, we have information what we would like to add. So it's a kind of a mixture of AutoCAD plus Excel in a simpler words, but that's in terms of analysis, it is much stronger than these two. Now, as I showed one shape file was for village, that is for polygon. At the same time, if you are able to see the second one in center, these are basically roads of Tripura states. And this is again, I will say lines. First one is polygon, second one is line. Now you can combine these two. It's kind of an overlapping of these two layers or these two shape files. Now, when you combine the villages plus roads, you can perform some kind of queries. Now, queries can be anything. Maybe you would like to have that in each village, what is the road network available in terms of length or in terms of maybe particular type? How many in out of all 800 villages, how many villages are there which are not having any road, or basically which are not connected by any road? That information you can extract. At the same time, which villages are having the better roads? I mean, in terms of quantum safety aspect, as of now, it's not included. But yes, you can perform all kind of queries, villages and road. These two combination, based on these two, you can extract. You can have that which are the villages having most population, or those kind of queries you can perform. Now, I shown one is village, that is polygon, second is road, that is line, and third I have added now is points. Basically, if you are able to see each and every black point is a school. So these are the school locations. Now, if I have enough data for these three database, shape files, now what kind of queries I perform is, maybe I can have that how many schools are connected by road, or how many schools are not connected by road, or how many villages are not having any school, or how many schools are connected by road but the roads are divided or roads are undivided, and so on. So depending on your purpose of the project, you can perform all these queries. So these are just one example to convey that village polygon, roads, line, and points in the school. It can be anything. We have another database where we are dealing health centers because of the current need. The health centers. Then we can have that per population, per unit population, how many health centers are there in this particular village or in this particular district or city, anything. depending on all project requirements. This zoomed, this rectangle area is basically shows all three together. It is a zoom version of all the above three shape files overlap. Here you can see the boundary of black one is the boundary of village. The browns are basically roads, and small dots are basically schools. So one thing is you can visualize what you are performing in terms of your query, and at the same time you can have it in an attribute table as well. So these are all possible queries. I just listed few, but it can be enormous, and it can be based on your requirement. That's all. In fact, for this particular project for Tripura, we wanted to understand that how many schools are connected, but it's not safe to go there because of the unsafe routes over there. So what we extracted using GIS advanced tools, of course, is basically what is the sharpness of those roads near school. We created a buffer around a school, maybe a 1 kilometer buffer, and then we wanted to say the how unsafe or how sharp roads are there within the distance of 1 kilometer from the school. So we could identify kind of schools which are in unsafe area, so that we can did in terms of the road safety, we can correct it, we can improve, we can through some traffic calming measures or some design changes, whatever required. But those black spots or whatever you call it, unsafe school zones, were identified to take up some better decisions over there. This was that previous one was the application with respect to a larger area. Now depending on your project, depending on your requirements, you can perform this in other analysis for the urban area. Now maybe for bus stops, and what is the population living within the bus stops, within the 500-meter distance from the bus stop, or can be metro station, it can be 1 kilometer, just to understand that if you create a new bus stop here, how many people would be able to have an access. Now irrespective, they not each and everyone is going to use that bus stop, but at least you will have some idea based on your population density. And there maybe you would like to provide some new routes to and for that you would like to see within Surat which are the area which is not having a bus stop within say 2 kilometer distance. So those area needs to be connected. So those connectivity checks can be done using all these tools. I will say applications are huge, and not only I've just listed very few, and you can definitely have many more on it. The only thing I would like to convey here, don't expect magics. That means by this, I would like to say that if you don't have one particular thing in your database, the query cannot be performed. Some people try to extract everything from GIS database, but they have not entered. They don't have database, but they still would like to perform a query. In Google, you can have some say distance, time related aspect, but if you have not put anything information with respect to the cost, you cannot perform it. So as simple as that, whatever data you have added, only for those data you can perform the queries. It cannot be altogether a new aspect which is not being covered through the database. Only thing is a query tool which can manage a large or huge data set which is impossible to manage otherwise. I think I will stop here. If you in case anyone have a question, we can. I would be happy to answer. If not, then I tried one video film, but I think it is not working. So I will stop here. Professor Mehta, in case you have anything else to convey.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your informative session. One or two questions we have in the chat box.
Okay.
What is the difference between flyover and foot over bridge?
Okay. I will stop my just 1 second. Let me unshare it. Okay. Flyover is basically a structure
which is, hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Flyover is a